New pastes from our effects range. You may have seen a video, Josh has done one using the creamy acrylics. You'll see all sorts of makes and different inspiration from some of our great designers going forward. But I just want to give you a quick introduction, tell you what they're all about, tell you how they fit in with our Sizzix range as well, because that's very important. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what we're talking about today. I've got expand paste, dimensional paste and pearlescent medium. Now the pearlescent medium is I think is 100 mil, whereas these two I can't find the information. There's so much information here I can't find what I'm looking at. Okay, well let's just say there's a lot of it, but I think it's 150 mil, so 100 and 150 mil. Now what are the unique properties of these? I think we'll start off with expand paste because this is rather special. And these were developed with all of our design team, and we really looked at what would help bring out the best from our product range, i.e. our dies and embossing folders. Now this expand paste, you'll see it's quite gelatinous, gloopy, viscous, call it what you will. But how I'm going to show it this morning. Now I've actually die cut a stencil. One of the great things about die cutting, you can create your own stencils, which you can, and because you can do that, you can use either stencil film, which is very thin, or this is 300-gram card, which of course is quite thick. So if you want dimension, use this. If you're inking, use the stencil film. And this die comes from Mixed Media number 3 from Mr. Tim Holtz, one of the wonderful mixed media range of dies, and those are the 3 different dies that you get. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some of this out and I'm going to place it here. And just with my palette knife, and I've got a posh palette knife today. I usually use just plastic ones, but I thought I'd bring out this lovely silver one. And there we are, that's all through. And we'll put that to one side and just peel away the stencil because I'm actually use a repositionable adhesive to ensure that it doesn't move around. Now, the first thing that you'll notice here is that I used too much adhesive and pulled off some of the texture, but that doesn't really matter. That's just Pete being Pete. Now, let's have a look. I'll move that around so you can see the dimension. Now, I could heat this immediately to get an effect. It will start to bubble. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one that I made sometime earlier. And it's good to show the contrast against black card because I'm going to take my Sizzix heat tool. And this is the unique function of our expand paste. When I heat it, you'll start, see this starts to turn white and it puffs up almost like toasting a marshmallow, if you will. And it gives such a unique texture. It's absolutely glorious. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Now, you can imagine what will happen by the time we get to the end of this. I just want to show you what happens when I work on the wet paste. It's a very, very different effect. See, it starts to bubble. You see, so that's why we don't do it. We allow it to dry. It only takes a couple of hours. So that's the last thing we want. That's why we need to have that drying time. This has been drying for about 4 hours. At 2 hours, you get a more defined texture, sort of halfway between these two. So play around with it, experiment. There is so much that you can do. Imagine you've got some of those little Tim Holtz houses and you put it, say you want a Christmas cottage, you can put this using your, oh, goodness me, I've lost the power of speech. Putting your palette knife on the edge of the roofs of the house like that and then heat it and it looks like snow. It's absolutely wonderful. So for any festive makes, it is beautiful. Even if you're adding it to the petals of a poinsettia or something like that. Wonderful, wonderful product. Let's have a look at some examples thereof. Now this is another Tim Holtz mixed media die. You can see here, and this is what I was talking about. This is that halfway house. So it's not completely dry, as my first example was, but it's not completely wet either. Then, how about, this is just applying it with a palette knife. So little blobs, gloopy, so it's very thin there, very thick there. You can see the difference. But if you're doing like a make, maybe it's a festive make, maybe you've got a snowman standing on a log, apply some of this to the base, heat it up, hey, presto, instant snow. Now, one of the things I want to talk about as well is the fact that it is blendable if you choose to use, and why wouldn't you, quite frankly, some of our Sizzix creamy acrylics, and check out Josh's video where he talks about the unique properties of these acrylics. You can blend this with the expand paste, and if I show you the creamy acrylic, you'll notice that there's not a lot of difference there. So you still get the punchiness of the colour, so it's completely blendable. Now, if you blend two colours, you can do this. You can apply it with your palette knife from one end, then the other, so you get those two colours blending together like that, and then let it dry, apply the heat. Or how about putting it on top of the colour? So the background was created using a palette knife with different creamy acrylics, and then we stenciled over the top. You can even do it and apply spray inks, or how about painting it black and then having a go with our gilding wax. How about that? Isn't that gorgeous? Now, you can die cut it as well. So imagine applying some of this through a stencil onto mount board or matte board or very heavy mixed media board. Then you can die cut that. Now, this was die cut with the bigs. You can see, so what I did, I applied it through this lovely stencil. Then I painted over the top with our creamy acrylics, allowed that to dry, and then let it puff up. It's wonderful, isn't it? And very unique. And I think that's the thing about it. It's unique, it's special, it's different. It will give your makes that bit of difference, which we all love as makers. But there we are. Let's put those to one side. That is expand paste. Oh, just one more. If Josh could pull out the shots slightly. Here's a lovely make that we did, and you can see here that I've used a die-cut alphabet to create a stencil. So there were individual letters. I made the stencil, I put my expand paste through there, painted over the top. Once it was dry, poof, there you go. And a lovely, lovely, really very unique effect. And you can see down the side, this is 3D glue with our foil sheets, and of course, our creamy acrylics in the background. So let's put that to one side. And I'm going to talk now about my friend, dimensional paste. Now, you may have seen this as structure paste, as it comes in all sorts of names, but this is dimensional paste, and it's made specially for blending with our colours and so on and so forth. And let's take the top off there. So you've got this lovely layer which seals in the freshness, as it were, but actually it stops it from drying out while it's in the tub. So it's not as gloopy as our expand paste, but it gives great body. Look at that. Really, really cool. And again, I'm doing exactly the same as before. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to show you the difference. So we'll apply that through our die cut stencil, again using Tim's Mixed Media number 3 die, one of 3 absolutely gorgeous dies, one of my favourite sets actually. Kudos to you, Mr. Holtz. And we'll peel that away, and again I've used way too much glue on the back of there, goodness me. But you'll see the structure, and you'll see it's got quite a sharp edge. That is absolutely glorious, and that's what I want. I want that, because when I do a technique over the top of this, maybe I'll dry brush or something like that, it will help the dimension pop to the front. Now, let's put that to one side, because I want to show you some examples of how that works. Now this, you'll see, this is dimensional paste just on black card. It's lovely to see the contrast between the black and the white, and it really does have a hard edge. Again, as with our expand paste, you can blend it with our colours, and let's look at these colours side by side. You see you're hardly losing any of the pigment, of the strength of that pigment from our creamy acrylics. Lovely, lovely effect. Then how about putting it on, say, for example, a journal cover? We have 2 here. So what we did, we applied the stencils, we painted over the top with our creamy acrylics using various techniques, and then dry brushed. So we did a dry brush technique with just white creamy acrylic just to lift the texture. So those, now, when we talk about blendability, when we talk about blending creamy acrylics and texture paste, this is the kind of thing you get. But again, you don't lose any of that pigment. It doesn't dilute it. It doesn't make it whiter, because this is just an acrylic base, this dimensional paste. So it takes on that color quite beautifully. Oh, again, another simple one. Using the one that we actually did before. Again, this is with blended color. So color blended with the paste, using our palette knife. Really nice, expressive technique there. Now, with dimensional paste, you can die cut it. You can die cut it. Oh, and I just want to show you, actually, I'm going to show you something really quick. A way to get a really unique texture. I'm keeping Josh busy today on the camera. Thank you very much for taking the time, Josh. So I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to apply it just to a piece of black card like that. So you can see you can create wonderful textures directly to your background. And this is great if you want to paint over the top. It's great on journal covers if you want to do it on matte board or anything like that. And then when you paint over the top, all these lovely textures come through. Now, if you let it dry, and it's quite a fine point actually, if you let it dry so the surface is completely dry and underneath is still wet, you can actually stamp into this. But if you don't get that drying time right, it can be a real mess. Now, we'll put that down there. And while Josh sings a little tune, I'm going to reach over here. He didn't sing a little tune, thank goodness. He does have a lovely voice, I hesitate to add. But what I'll do, I'll grab my brayer, which was over there, and I'll peel that away. Because what I've done, I've created this texture. 2 for the price of 1. How's that? I'm not going to go get all Ross charts on you, but it's absolutely wonderful. And that texture pays dividends with things like this. So this was done, that's the same thing. So after that dries, I would paint it black, and then I would use our luster waxes, which are another part of our effects range. I would use our luster waxes just to bring that unique texture. You look at that and you think, that's almost like leaf veins. Well, there you go. How about this? We've got stenciling, we've got texture. Again, we've used luster wax, we've used acrylics, we've used a dry brush technique to enhance that texture. You can see that texture there. These are just the unpainted ones, that gives you an idea. But this was applied to the matte board, and this is really thick board, prior to die cutting. So once it's dry, you can die cut it with a Biggs die, of course. So there's some lovely leaves. How about this journal cover? You're just very simply applying, as I showed before, with your palette knife, then using some luster wax to bring that out. And again, the same thing, luster wax, different colours. We've got the silver, we've got the gold, and we've got a bit of rose gold going on in the background there. Now, of course, artists have used this for years to create dimension on their canvas, and this is a very simple canvas. We've used the creamy acrylics, we've actually stenciled through an alphabet, as I showed you before, but you can see the underlying texture which was created using this paste. Again, stenciling, you can see the stenciling here, and we've also used some of our lovely decorative foil flakes to get that effect. So again, and this one, again, look at the texture and look at how it picks up when you dry brush it. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, there's no reason why you can't use this on canvases, on cards, on scrapbook layouts, whatever your little heart desires. That's dimensional paste. There's a lot more to this. Obviously, in the coming weeks and months, we will show you examples of some of the makes that you can create using that. Now, next up, we talked about 3 pastes, didn't we? And here's the other one. This is the pearlescent medium. And the word medium is very important because what this is something that can be added to our other products, and you'll see it's quite similar to the texture paste, a little bit more free-flowing than that, actually. And one of the things that you can do with this lovely pearlescent medium is brush it over the top of a painted surface, like for example, and it always looks best when you take a 3-dimensional object, so great for home decor and the like. But you can see these lovely colors. That's just our matte creamy acrylics, but what happens when we apply that pearlescent medium is they take on as expected, that wonderful pearlescent sheen. Now, if I take this to one side, you can see what happens when I blend this. Now, this is our creamy acrylic, and this is the same creamy acrylic, but about a 50-50 blend with our pearlescent medium. And you can see what happens when the light does its magic and plays on there. So rather than sell you a set of paints and pearlescent paints, we just give you the medium, and you can choose to use it or not. Now, not only this, you can actually paint over the top with the pearlescent medium. So I can paint over the top of that. It would give me a similar effect, but I do like blending it with the paint first. It's dilutable in the sense that you can apply it. So if I apply it to here, so I could go over the top of black and get a lovely pearlescent finish. Or I could add water to it, really thin it down. And the more I thin it down, the more subtle that pearlescent finish becomes. And you can see here, this is 100%, and we come down to about 20% there. So see how that has a very different effect. So it can be very subtle, or it can be very in your face, depending what you want. But you've got that functionality, you've got that usability. You can do whatever you choose. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brings me to the end of my little presentation of the 3 pastes. So remember, we have the expand paste, the dimensional paste, and the pearlescent medium. There's lots more to come from the Effectz range. There's much more to come from us designers as well. But thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon.